Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let me give a shout out to the viewers on my last video. I believe it was Dwyer Boxing News 8/18/2012, who pointed out to me the 30-day weigh-in for the Saul Alvarez Josesito Lopez fight, right? I'll tell you what, I learned a lot from the comments, and YouTube viewers like Nyota430 and others pointed out to me that Josesito Lopez, who normally fights at 140 to 142, weighed in 30 days before his fight against Saul Alvarez at 166.5 pounds. Alvarez weighed in at 167.2. The weight where they'll be fighting is 154. Let me make a few points, okay? Because I believe Josesito Lopez gets smoked in this fight. I mean badly hurt. I think he gets stopped in this fight. I think you need to look past the fact that Shane Mosley, who's never been stopped in his career, went the distance with Canelo, and I think we need to recognize that few guys in the sport hit harder pound for pound than Saul Alvarez, right? You know, all I can say is there's a size difference here that cannot be overstated. The fact that Lopez weighs within a pound of Saul Alvarez doesn't mean, in my opinion, that Lopez belongs at 154 pounds. Understand, this is a guy who fought Jesse Vargas when Vargas weighed 142 and lost the fight, right? Let me go one step further. While he has similar volume to Saul Alvarez, he doesn't have similar accuracy. So he'll be facing a guy who, quite frankly, hits much harder than he does, right? And who also is more accurate than he is. Let me put it in perspective. When Lopez fought Victor Ortiz, that fight went a full 9 rounds. It's at the end of the 9th round that Victor Ortiz pulls the plug on the fight. He has a broken jaw, right? Well, understand, through 9 rounds of that fight, Josesito Lopez, according to CompuBox, landed 12 jabs, right? In other words, Lopez doesn't have the punch to create distance between him and a heavier fighter. He's not much of a jabber, right? Also, his connect rate against Ortiz, this is a fight he won. This is the one fight he's had at welter, right? And he didn't weigh 147 for that fight. Look at the weigh-in weight. His connect rate against Ortiz was 30%. Understand that Saul Alvarez customarily is around 40% in terms of his connect rate. He's very accurate. Let me also point out, too, that if you look at Lopez's fight against Jesse Vargas, right, which was at a lighter weight than the Ortiz fight, what you're going to see is that Jesse Vargas lands too many punches on Josesito Lopez, right? That fight was too much like the George Groves Sierra fight that recently took place in San Jose, right? Groves won that fight, but it was clear that his defense needs work, right? Too many punches were landed. Well, all I'm saying is Jesse Vargas landed a lot of punches at 142. Now Lopez, with the same defense, just a couple of fights later, is going to hop in the ring with a much bigger hitter whose left hook is a one-punch knockout. Look at Canelo's knockout of Carlos Baldomir, right? Look at Canelo's fight against Kermit Cintron to see what Canelo does when he's facing a guy and he's able to land a bevy of punches, right? Canelo, let me just say this. I don't know how Shane Mosley went the distance against Canelo, because Canelo was hitting him with withering body punches. Body punches are the kind of punches that literally set apart the guys who belong at the weight from the guys who don't, right? In other words, just because you weigh 154, or in this case 166.5, doesn't mean you have the punch of a junior middle, doesn't mean you can take the punch of a junior middle. I mean, again, Jesse Vargas at 142 went the distance with Josesito Lopez. Let me also point out, too, that Victor Ortiz is the one who pulled the plug in that fight. He wasn't knocked out in the ring. Lopez's 166.5 weight is further disappointing because his best shot to win this fight is to throw combinations and to leverage a hand speed advantage. When you enter the ring weighing more than you normally do, right? And keep in mind, it's bad news because the fight's in September. He's going to have to lose 12.5 pounds to make weight, right? When you're heavier than normal, you're more sluggish than normal, right? That hand speed advantage starts to go away. Not only that, when you're carrying extra weight, it's like carrying extra luggage. How do we know? In the 9th round, the 10th round, the 11th round, that Lopez isn't going to feel the extra weight he's carrying. You don't want to be carrying luggage against Canelo. Let me also point out, too, that while Lopez's jab isn't great, Canelo actually has a pretty good jab. I see Canelo's weapons as follows. Pretty good jab, great left hook, excellent straight right hand. That's his game. Now maybe Lopez will be able to jump out against Canelo like Miguel Cotto's older brother did. Canelo seems to be vulnerable early in fights, the Alfonso Gomez fight. But understand, if you look at the Jesse Vargas film, Lopez starts slow in that fight. He doesn't jump out. Let me go one step further. Look at the scorecards for the Victor Ortiz fight. Jesse Vargas was losing that fight on the scorecards. I question whether Jesse Vargas can start fast against Canelo, build up a 3 or 4 round lead, and then make this fight interesting. As I said before, too, he's going to be pretty much right in front of Canelo, just like he was right in front of Jesse Vargas. Right? Now, the guys who have been able to gain weight and have success, the David Hayes, the Manny Pacquiaos, the Floyd Mayweathers, the Antonio Tarvers, the Bernard Hopkins, these guys are hard to hit. Right? I'm not saying David Hay has great defensive skills, but he's quick, he's fast, and he's moving around the ring. Think of him against Nikolai Valuev, right? He's quick. Let me also make another point, too. Lopez isn't the boxer that a Tarver or a Hopkins is, or a Mayweather. He doesn't move as well as a Hay or a Pacquiao. I think what we're going to find out is he really belongs at 140 pounds, not 154, right? The fact that he weighed 166.5 30 days before the fight doesn't impress me at all. I would have been more impressed, quite frankly, if he weighed around 150, because that would tell me that he's going to be in, shape to actually stick, move, force Canelo to move. If he's planning on going toe-to-toe with one of the hardest punchers in the sport, forget the Canelo persona, forget the cinnamon persona. Canelo's a brutal hitter, right? Just look at Kermit Cintron at the end of that fight, right? He's a brutal hitter. If Lopez plans on going toe-to-toe and is planning on coming in the same weight as Canelo, I don't see how this fight makes it to the 8th round, right? Sorry, that's just how I see it. I like Canelo in that fight. Let's talk about other news. I have a couple other things I want to talk about. TMT Promotions, the Money Team Promotions, the 50 Cent outfit, is starting with an awfully strong card, right? Yorkis Gamboa, 21-0, 16 KOs, is scheduled to fight IBF Super Middleweight Champion Juan Carlos Salgado, 26-1-1, 16 KOs. We'll deal with that fight at a later time. It's the second fight on that card that fascinates me. And this is a card that's supposed to happen in a few months. It's Andre Dirrell, 20-1 with 14 KOs, coming out of a second round KO of Southpaw Darrell Cunningham. And keep in mind, Dirrell is a Southpaw. And he's fighting Southpaw Brian McGee, 36-4-1 with 25 KOs for McGee's WBA interim super middleweight title. All I could say is this. I know Dirrell is the bigger name. This is a great fight. McGee, who is older, he's 37 years old, has only lost twice since 2006. The guys he lost to were Carl Froch in the 11th round, right? Pay attention to that, the 11th round. And Lucien Bute in the 10th round. And if you look at the film, you're going to see Froch hits him with an uppercut in the 11th after stunning him after a break with a straight right hand, right? McGee was unprepared for it. That's what stopped McGee in a very close fight. Then, of course, Lucien Bute stopped him on a body shot in the 10th round in Canada. Now, McGee isn't a pursuer. Let's talk styles. He's not a pursuer. He doesn't chase you around the ring. No, he's a difficult matchup. He's what I call a hoverer, right? He's in front of you, not really trying to corner you, but not running away from you. He's actually trying to box you, and he's very good at it. Now, let's talk Andre Dirrell for a second, right? Andre Dirrell, in my opinion, can't fight inside. I know it's controversial, whatever. But Andre Dirrell can't fight inside. That's why when he's fighting Carl Froch, a fight, by the way, I thought he won. When he's fighting Carl Froch and he gets inside, he flops to the canvas. By the way, this is a move that David Haye seems to have also used in his fight against Vladimir Klitschko, right? If Dirrell could have fought inside, then when he got inside on Carl Froch, he would have looked like Andre Ward did, because Froch is vulnerable if you get inside on him. But instead, he flopped. There's a hole in his game, right? Not only that, he's a mover. He typically likes to move. And all I'm saying is, his game is more geared for an Arthur Abraham who's going to pursue him around the ring, right? So he can then beat you on his back foot. Then it is a Brian McGee who's not going to allow you to fight on your front foot or your back foot, right? He has just enough firepower where even heavy-handed guys like Carl Froch had to dig deep for more than 10 rounds. Let me point out that Lucien Bute got so frustrated he actually drops his hand in the fight and tries to open up McGee, who has his hands up. In other words, McGee is the kind of crafty vet who forces you to fight and then has pretty good defense. right? Boutte was able to come in low, hit him with a great body shot, but McGee up until that point in the 10th round was actually very conscious, was very much in the fight, right? I question whether Andre Dirrell is going to be up close like Boutte was. Boutte literally stops moving and starts fighting in that fight. I question whether Andre Dirrell is going to do that. Let me point out, I know Dirrell fought Daryl Cunningham and actually stood his ground in getting the second round KO, right? And we need to emphasize that fight because Dirrell has hardly fought since the Arthur Abraham fight. Now let me just say, Cunningham really was overmatched. Look at his record. The majority of the guys he's fought have had losing records. Not only that, Cunningham had holes in his game. Cunningham, southpaw, threw a lazy jab. First of all, he was shorter than Dirrell. Dirrell's 6'2". McGee is 6 feet tall. I don't know what Daryl Cunningham's height was, but he looked demonstratively shorter, and he was defensively limited. In other words, he'd throw a jab, and then he'd be lazy in bringing the jab back. The problem with the guy who's lazy in bringing the jab back is he's defenseless for punches thrown over the jab, right? His hand's here. It's not up like this, right? It's here. He throws a jab, then he has the punch lingering, his arm's lingering. He was a dead duck for Dirrell, another southpaw, to literally come across with a straight left hand, right? Let me also point out, too, that Cunningham really didn't have any survival skills once he hits the canvas. If you look at the film of the fight, he can't even clinch or clutch Andre Dirrell. Well, Brian McGee has great survival instincts. As I said before, he's only lost to elite fighters. I know those in the UK are saying, is Lucien Boutte really an elite fighter? Check back with me after the Froch rematch. That's all I have to say on that, right? But my point to you is simply, McGee is real competition, right? He's a southpaw like Dirrell. He's much better defensively than Daryl Cunningham. He's a more difficult style matchup than Arthur Abraham. Not only that, Dirrell has only fought 2 southpaws in his career, none as good as Brian McGee. The bet I like in this fight is the over. Now, I haven't seen posted odds, but I'll be surprised if this fight doesn't go at least 8 rounds, right? So, the way to play it is, if the over-under is, let's say, 8 rounds, just take the over. That's fine. If it's higher than that, if it's 9 or 10 rounds, then what you could do is literally take the over, but then buy the rounds between that over and 8. I'll be surprised if the over-under, quite frankly, is greater than 8 rounds. I'll be surprised if Andre Dirrell isn't overpriced in this one. I think it's a competitive fight. I don't know what Dirrell has exactly in the tank. I know he's been training in high-profile places like the Mayweather gym, but that's training. That's different than an actual fight. And the one thing I know about Brian McGee, even though he's 37, is he's exactly the kind of crafty vet who will force Dirrell to fight several rounds. Let's remember, he forced Froch into the 11th. He forced Boutte into the 10th. I'm surprised Dirrell is taking on someone this difficult so soon after his return from a long absence, right? The Daryl Cunningham fight almost doesn't count. Let me hear from you. Give me your thoughts on whether or not you think Brian McGee is going to be serious competition for Dirrell. Let me also point out, too, that Brian McGee, against a pretty good fighter, Rudy Mancuson, actually was able to end that fight on a body shot. Right? Now, given that Dirrell is not that good inside, you really have to wonder what happens if Brian McGee hurts Dirrell to the body. I think this is a fascinating fight. If I was going to hedge it, I take the underdog, Brian McGee, to win the fight. And then I'd find a way to take Andre Dirrell late, right? The last third of the fight. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Thanks for watching.